My parents handed the family bakery to my brother without even asking if I wanted to be part of it. So I opened my own shop across town and beat them at the biggest city festival of the year. My name's Rachel Morgan, and this is the story of how being left out became the best thing that ever happened to me. Before we get started, where are you tuning in from? Are you in the middle of the morning rush or on a late-night drive? Drop a comment below. You're about to hear everything that happened after I made the choice that changed everything. I was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, right in the heart of our family bakery, Morgan's Hearth. Some kids grew up playing in their backyard. I grew up rolling cookie dough beside my grandmother while she sang along to old jazz records. My parents, Greg and Susan, ran the shop like clockwork. Everyone knew them downtown. They were the type of couple who wore matching aprons and greeted every customer like an old friend. I used to think they were the most impressive people in the world. I'm the middle child of 3. My older brother Jake was loud, charismatic, and always in motion. He could make anyone laugh, and people naturally gravitated toward him. My younger sister Claire was delicate, soft-spoken, and had this effortless way of making adults dote on her. Then there was me, Rachel. I was observant, quiet, and happiest when my hands were dusted with flour and the kitchen was humming. As kids, we all worked in the bakery on weekends. Jake took the register, Claire helped with decorations, and I stayed in the back, baking alongside whoever would let me. I didn't mind. The kitchen was where the real magic happened. I memorized every recipe, learned every trick my grandmother passed down, and dreamed of what the shop could be if someone just tried something different. Seasonal menus, social media, delivery partnerships. I kept notebooks full of ideas. But ideas were never really my family's thing. Tradition was. In high school, Jake started shadowing Dad during the early morning prep. I was told to keep focusing on school, even though I begged to join. When Jake went off to college for business, my parents couldn't stop talking about how he'd modernize Morgan's Hearth when he came back. I went to culinary school instead. They smiled, said that was cute, and asked if I'd bake for Claire's birthday. I never said it out loud, but it hurt. I was the only one who loved the actual baking. Not the branding, not the customer service, the baking. But no matter what I did, I always felt like the spare, the helper, the backup plan. After graduation, I moved back home, thinking this was my chance. I had a business proposal written up, spreadsheets of projections, even a plan to launch a mobile cupcake truck to attract younger customers. I asked for a meeting with my parents, an actual formal sit-down. They said sure, and told me to bring the idea to Sunday dinner. That Sunday, I set my binder on the table just as Dad cleared his throat. "Before we get started," he said, "your mother and I have something to announce." And just like that, they told us Jake would be taking over the business. Full ownership, full control. They never looked at my binder, never even asked what was inside. I didn't even finish my meal that night. After my parents' announcement, I sat there frozen, staring at the pot roast on my plate like it might say something that would make it all make sense. Jake, of course, acted surprised. "Really? Wow. Thanks, Mom and Dad." But I saw it in his face. He already knew. They'd talked about it without me. Without even considering me. Claire reached across the table and gave my hand a small squeeze, like she could feel the weight settling on my chest. No one else said a word about my binder sitting on the corner of the table. It might as well have been invisible, just like me. That night, I went home to the tiny one-bedroom apartment I'd been renting above a used bookstore and cried harder than I had in years. Not because I didn't get the bakery. I could have accepted that, maybe. But because no one thought I was even worth talking to. No one thought to ask what I wanted. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my mom. "Hi, honey," she said, in that overly sweet voice she used when she knew she'd hurt someone. "Just wanted to check in. I hope you're okay. We didn't mean to blindside you. It's just, Jake's always had such a clear vision, you know. We're sure you'll still be involved. Maybe you can manage the kitchen or handle weekend orders. Let's talk soon. Involved. Manage the kitchen. Like a hired hand. That voicemail lit something in me I didn't know I had. I didn't call her back. I didn't go to the bakery that week. Instead, I pulled out my old notebooks and flipped through the pages filled with ideas I once thought might help our family business. I started circling the ones that were still possible. Still mine. I didn't want to fix Morgan's hearth anymore. I wanted something of my own. Within a month, I was baking small batches of custom orders out of my apartment kitchen. Cookies, cupcakes, mini bundt cakes. I posted a few photos online, nothing fancy, and shared the link on a local Charleston community board. The first person to order was a woman named Denise, who needed custom cupcakes for her daughter's birthday party. Then a realtor named Greg wanted thank you boxes for his clients. Then a bachelorette brunch needed mini pies. They just kept coming. I called my little venture Honey and Hearth, a quiet nod to the home I had once hoped to inherit. But this one was going to be mine alone. My living space turned into a full-time bakery overnight. My countertops were covered in cooling racks. I had one good oven mitt and a timer I had to smack twice to make it stop ringing. But it was mine. I was making rent with butter, sugar, and grit. Meanwhile, I still passed Morgan's hearth almost every day. They'd put Jake's face on a new promotional poster in the window. The next generation of Morgan's hearth. And under that, family owned and operated since 1953. Family. I guess that definition depends on who gets included. Claire stopped by my apartment one Friday with a box of tea and a hesitant smile. "Mom says you're going through a phase," she said carefully. "I told her you're building something." She paused, then added, "I think it's kind of amazing." So did I. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud yet, but deep down I could feel it. Something real was beginning. Not just a side hustle, not just a distraction. A path that wasn't handed to me. One I had chosen. One I would fight for. Orders kept rolling in. What started as a few dozen cupcakes on the weekends turned into daily batches of everything from lavender scones to bourbon pecan pies. I was still baking out of my apartment's cramped kitchen, using a secondhand stand mixer that rattled like it was trying to escape the counter, but it didn't matter. People liked what I made, and they kept coming back. I tracked every order in a notebook and reinvested every dollar I made into ingredients, packaging, and better tools. I couldn't afford a commercial kitchen yet, but I was getting close. Claire helped when she could, usually on Saturdays. She was still working part-time at a local event company and would swing by with leftover ribbon or boxes I could repurpose for packaging. We were rebuilding something between us, something we'd never had before. For the first time, she wasn't the baby everyone catered to. She was my friend. One day, she walked in holding a flyer. "Charleston Fall Festival is back," she said, laying it on the counter. "They're doing the bake-off again this year." I looked at it, my hands still dusted with powdered sugar. "You know Morgan's Hearth wins that every year." "Exactly," she said, raising her eyebrows. "What if this time they didn't?" At first, I laughed it off. I'd need a professional kitchen, permits, packaging, probably a new mixer that doesn't sound like it's dying. "Rachel," she said, tilting her head, "you've already done the hard part. People love your baking. You're halfway there." I spent the next few days mulling it over. The idea felt ridiculous. Who was I to challenge the legacy bakery of Charleston, especially one run by my own family? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about one-upping Jake or proving something to my parents. It was about stepping fully into what I had already started, claiming the space I had quietly earned. So I did it. I applied. The application process forced me to scale up quickly. I couldn't enter from a home kitchen, so I rented time at a shared commercial kitchen space downtown. It was expensive, but worth it. I developed a menu for the festival: maple brown butter cookies, chai spice muffins, lemon honey cake, and my signature sea salt chocolate tart. It wasn't long before the pressure set in. I was up at 4 a.m. and working until midnight. My apartment was a mess. I forgot to call people back. My hands were raw from scrubbing trays. but I'd never felt more alive. 3 weeks before the festival, I got a call from a local wedding planner named Jada, who had tasted my cake at someone's bridal shower. "You're entering the fall festival, right?" she asked. "I'm planning a styled shoot with some vendors for the week after. If you win, or even place, you're going to be in serious demand." I hung up the phone and just stood there for a while. The thought hit me like a wave. This wasn't just a hobby anymore. This was a business. I printed a stack of business cards, updated my social media with a new logo, and started building an actual website. Claire helped me design it. It was nothing fancy, just clean photos, a short bio, and an order form. But when I hit publish, I felt something shift. Honey and Hearth wasn't just an idea anymore. It was real. 2 days later, I passed Morgan's Hearth on my way home. A banner across the window read, "Proud contestants, Charleston Fall Festival Bake-Off." Jake's face smiled out at the city like he'd already won. I stared for a moment. Then I smiled. Let's see what happens when the forgotten one shows up. The morning of the Charleston Fall Festival dawned cool and bright, the kind of crisp October day that makes the whole city feel like a postcard. I was up before the sun, packing boxes of pastries into the borrowed van Claire had managed to wrangle from her work's delivery fleet. Every item was labeled, sealed, and carefully cushioned against the ride. I'd been baking for nearly 72 hours straight with barely a break, but the adrenaline numbed the exhaustion. My booth was tucked into a corner of the main thoroughfare, across from the city garden and just a few tents away from Morgan's Hearth. I tried not to look, but of course I saw them setting up. My dad in his apron. My mom placing floral decorations around the table like she was prepping for a wedding. Jake stood behind the table in a pressed polo, handing out smiles like campaign buttons. Their booth had a full backdrop, laminated menus, branded tablecloths. Mine? Just white linen, handwritten chalkboard signs, and a mason jar of sunflowers from Claire. But I had something they didn't. People. Before the festival officially opened, I already had a small line. Former customers I'd met through custom orders, a couple of coffee shop regulars, even the realtor who had first given me a bulk order months ago. They stopped by, hugged me, bought extra pastries, just in case they sold out. I was floored. I'd spent so long feeling like I was baking in the dark. Turns out, people had been watching all along. The competition judging was scheduled for late afternoon. All entries were anonymous, assigned a number, no names or business affiliations allowed until after the results. I submitted my lemon honey cake, the one that always made people pause after the first bite. Simple, understated, but rich with flavor and history. It was the first recipe I ever created completely on my own. By midday, the air buzzed with energy. Families wandered from tent to tent. Musicians played on street corners. Kids ran with painted faces and sticky fingers. I caught a glimpse of my parents walking past with a group of local reporters, guiding them toward Morgan's Hearth. I didn't wave. Claire stayed by my side all day, handing out samples and helping customers. Around 3 o'clock, she nudged me and pointed across the square. Look. The judges were moving through the tents, a small cluster of officials, chefs, and a local food critic who once called my dad's cookies comforting but predictable. They stopped at my table. No one said much, just a few nods, one thoughtful bite, and some quiet scribbling. Then they moved on. It was done. All I could do was wait. At 5 o'clock sharp, the announcer stepped onto the main stage. "Thank you to all our amazing bakers for making this year's festival unforgettable," she began. "Now the moment you've all been waiting for." I wasn't ready for what happened next. In first place, for a delicate balance of flavor, originality, and execution, the judges unanimously award top honors to entry. 17, Honey and Hearth. I froze. People turned toward my tent. Claire screamed. Someone shoved me gently toward the stage. I walked like I was underwater, heartbeat in my ears, vision blurring. When I stepped onto the platform, the host handed me the blue ribbon and a small trophy. The crowd cheered. I scanned the square instinctively, and locked eyes with my mother. Her expression was unreadable, half shock, half something like disbelief. Jake stood beside her, arms crossed, his smile gone. My dad just stared. The applause swelled. Someone shouted my name. Claire rushed the stage and hugged me so hard we nearly dropped the trophy. I wasn't invisible anymore. I had arrived. After the ceremony, I stayed on the stage for a moment longer than I probably should have. Not because I wanted more applause, but because I just needed a second to breathe, to take it in. The ribbon in my hand wasn't just fabric and ink. It was a symbol of something I hadn't dared believe until that very moment. I was enough. Always had been. When I finally stepped down, people started flooding toward my booth. Customers, local vendors, strangers who had just watched the win and wanted a taste. Claire scrambled to restock the trays while I did my best to smile and answer every question. The energy was electric. Then I saw them. My parents and Jake approached slowly, like they weren't sure if they were welcome. They stopped a few feet away, just outside the flow of customers. I met their eyes, but I didn't move. I didn't have to. Jake spoke first. "Congrats, Rach. That was unexpected." I raised an eyebrow. "Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it." My mom gave a tight smile. "Your cake really was delicious. You've clearly built something here." Dad looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "You've been busy," he said, gesturing vaguely toward the crowd. "You should have told us. We didn't know you were serious about doing this." Claire, never one to miss a moment, leaned forward slightly. "You didn't ask," she said flatly. There was a beat of silence. My mom opened her mouth to respond, but then closed it again. For once, she had no words to fill the space. I wasn't angry in that moment. Not exactly. More than anything, I felt a strange sense of peace. I didn't need them to clap for me. I had already given myself everything they never did. "We're proud of you," my mom said eventually, but it came out brittle, conditional, late. "I know," I replied, voice steady. I just stopped needing to hear it. With that, I turned back to my booth, customers still waiting, pastries still selling. Claire gave them a polite nod before stepping in to help me hand out slices of the now famous lemon honey cake. Later that evening, after the crowds had faded and we'd packed up the last of the leftover goods, I sat in the back of the van with Claire and a box of mini muffins between us. We were both exhausted, feet aching, clothes dusted with sugar and flour. "Do you think they'll ever get it?" she asked softly. "Maybe," I said, watching the lights of downtown flicker in the distance. "But I'm not waiting around for that anymore." Claire nodded and nudged the box of muffins toward me. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think next year you run the whole dessert tent, or host your own baking class, or open your second location." I smiled, one step at a time. But deep down, I knew she was right. Honey and Hearth had started as a reaction, an answer to being left out. But now, it was a purpose. A platform. A future that didn't rely on being chosen. I had chosen myself. A week after the festival, I got a call from the Charleston Herald asking if I'd be open to a feature on local women entrepreneurs. A coffee shop in Atlanta emailed asking about a wholesale partnership. And a longtime customer reached out to say she'd just recommended me for a national small business grant program. I framed the blue ribbon and hung it in my kitchen. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. You don't need permission to build something extraordinary. You just need the courage to start anyway. What about you? Have you ever had to prove your worth to people who couldn't see it at first? We'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below. If you're into real-life family drama like this, make sure to subscribe for more.